out this evening around about 6 o'clock in the Lighthouse Cinema at the Dublin International Film Festival. A movie called Va por Diego will screen, and I'm delighted to say Miguel Flatow, the director, is with us in studio this morning. Good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Hi, Jer. Nice to see you, man.
Welcome,
Thanks for the invite.
Welcome to Dublin. How important is it when you bring a movie to a film festival? Like, what's that experience actually like for you? Because it's your life's work for the last couple of years, and then you're in a room and you're watching the screen and watching the audience to see, are they laughing at the right bits? Are they crying at the right bits?
I'm still fairly new at this, so this is like my second festival. We debuted at the Morelia Film Festival, which is kind of like the biggest one in Latin America, probably. So that was quite the experience. So still kind of getting used to it and the whole experience, but it matters a lot because you get a lot of free press. Sometimes like the front end of the festivals are like the red carpet, and the pictures, and the back end are like film markets. So sometimes, depends on the festival. This is a smaller festival, I guess, but for the bigger festivals like Toronto Con, there's all, like Netflix and Sony and Amazon and all these distributors will come
to buy your movie.
Will come and buy all the independent movies.
Right.
And yeah, there's different components to that. But
so what is your hope for this film? How do you make sure that as many people see it as possible? What
exactly. Well, one of them is like being here on the next few figures, like the canning. So all of the press helps really, because now we're in the process of distribution, sales. So we have a sales agency called Field Content. I think it's like a Spanish agency, and so we're just trying to build up as much support and publicity for the film so that the sales and the distribution is an easier process.
Okay. So that all makes sense. The movie is it's a football movie, but it's obviously not a football movie, but it is a football movie.
Yeah.
So why make a sports film?
I mean, I played a lot of soccer back in my day. I played semi-pro. I almost got to the pro level, but then I injured my knee ligament. So a little bit like the character in the film. And then when I was, then I went to the United States to study and everything. But while I was there, I kept thinking like, what happened to all my friends? I don't know how it works here, but when you're in Mexico, you kind of basically have to drop out of school to pursue the dream, because you start training during the day and during the night. And so you really have to sacrifice everything. And the odds of you really making it are like, I don't know, 1 in a million. So I kept thinking like, what happened to all my friends that didn't make it, clearly because I didn't hear about any of them. And which is really the lives of thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of Mexicans. And I'm sure like just the case of many players around the world. So the idea was just really exploring those lives after you don't achieve the dream, which is most likely.
I think that's particularly apt from an Irish context, because that's conversations we've had for quite some time over the years. Young Irish players, 15, 16, being poached traditionally by the bigger clubs in England, dropping their education year, which would have been the case 15, 16, and just, chasing the dream in England. And like you suggested, the percentage of people who succeed in that environment is very small. And the ones who do succeed get all the headlines, the contracts, profile, and we all, we know about them. We kind of share their experiences. They travel through football, but the ones that don't, we don't hear their stories. Maybe last few years we've heard a little bit more. They've got a little bit more exposure. The players who didn't meet it and came back to Dublin, to Ireland, had a very difficult time. And Miguel really kind of struggled. Yeah. Fell out of love with football, became angry, disillusioned, and that affected all aspects of their kind of life, how they live kind of going forward after that.
Brilliant. Yeah.
You said that you had an injury that was similar to the character in the film. Are you drawing a lot from your own experiences when you write this thing?
I mean, you kind of, when you write anything, I guess inevitably it just kind of slips into it. I tried not to, but yeah, I think it is a fictional story, but inevitably you just kind of, filter a little bit of the elements that will make the protagonist more real. But I wouldn't say it's based on me. Yeah.
What sort of experiences did you draw on them when you were writing it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely played with a lot of the guys, even some of my intention was that I wanted to show soccer how the way it hasn't been filmed before. For me, when I see soccer films, and it was a big question I asked, why aren't there that many good soccer films? And I realized it's because it's a very difficult sport to film.
Yeah.
Especially the classical 11 versus 11, because it's kind of slow. The scores are 1-0, 2-1, too many players to develop individually. So what I realized is
There's nothing wrong with 0-0. That's the fourth thing we're going to fall out over.
So what I realized is reducing it to like 7v7 aside, and then it turns a lot more dynamic. The scores are higher. You can develop each character individually, and that's kind of like filming basketball or hockey, of which there's many good films. So I think that was kind of my insight, and with that in mind, I really wanted to cast soccer players first, and turn them into actors, as opposed to do the opposite, which is, I think, probably harder to teach an actor to play soccer at the level that I wanted to show it.
Right.
So I wanted to film with like a wider lens, longer shots, and you can tell, like, just not that edited. I wanted to show that the players could actually play.
Yeah.
So I think if you like soccer, you see the film, if you like, you'd probably be like, oh, I've never seen soccer filmed that way.
Exactly. We actually had that conversation outside this morning, that it's one of the most striking parts of it is that the actual sport in it is really accurate, and like it seems like a pretty straightforward thing to say, but as you know yourself, I mean, getting football right on the screen is really tough.
It's not that easy.
So did you consider going 11-a-side on this when you were writing it, or were you thinking to yourself a smaller scale thing would be much easier to be authentic?
Yeah, I was doing when I was doing some prep, I was like, oh, filming 11:11 is basically impossible, so I kind of modified the script to be and immediately everything just turned easier. You have to cast less people. Just lowers their costs, and yeah, just the visual aspect just immediately made a lot more sense. So that was, I feel like, an insight, because I don't think there's that many films with like five-a-side or seven-a-side, and it just makes a lot more sense visually.
Can footballers act? Was that your general finding?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, isn't it?
Generally.
Hang on.
I mean,
it's
I don't know.
It's built into football. It's like, oh, I'm really badly injured. So.
Some say they have a life practice for it,
Yeah.
No, that was one of the challenges, because I definitely got like real soccer players that some of them even played at a pro level, were now retired, or some that were very close. Like everybody at least played sufficiently well enough. And then yeah, we got them through like an intensive, drama acting workshop, all of them, and it was a process. But I think I'm pretty happy with the end result. Yeah.
Should have had my CV in.
She just sent it.
Slipped through the net.
Yeah.
So when you're actually filming the 7-a-side scenes, can you talk us through like the technical aspects of it? Because I guess the actual behind the scenes element of all this is really interesting as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think if you see the film, you realize that the whole thing was shot on an iPhone 11. Back then, it was the most modern iPhone, and that's, yeah, I guess like the phones are so advanced. Maybe not that one. That seems a little bit shabby, but yeah.
Preaching to the converted.
But definitely for the soccer, it made a lot of sense. It facilitated a lot of the shots that wouldn't be otherwise possible. Because like the DP was literally in the field, just running after the players, running at top speed, and we did use like an additional stabilizer. Like the iPhone already stabilizes pretty well internally.
So it's a gimbal, a handheld.
Yeah, it has a gimbal. I think it was like a movie, I think, and like the DP is just running straight ahead. Full speed, and it just looks clean.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so that helped a lot as well.
Is there instructions for what should happen on the field of play, or do you just kind of let it play out? And
yeah, we did like a mixture. Like at some point, we did get like for the games, I would go to one team and be like, oh, this guy said something about you, so just trying to rile them up.
Right.
And we were like, okay, we're gonna play like 50 minutes top, just like real game, top intensity. And you can't do that forever because you just wipe out your actors. So we do that, and then we would like do a little bit of something like more choreographed, that I would choreograph, because I feel like I was able to. And then that would take a while actually, because we have to do it once and twice.
And when you say choreograph, what do you mean in particular? Just one particular shot, one scene, two players, and you dictate this is what I want to see.
Exactly. You'll receive the ball. You kind of have to run here. Right. Then choreograph like a play. And in the editing, I just mix that with like the actual real footage, so you can't really tell when it's choreographed or not. I feel like if you pay a lot of attention, you probably can, but I think it just adds clean. Because sometimes when you're just filming a real game, like the ball is just bouncing all over the place, and it's kind of hard to follow really. And out of like 30 minutes of filming, you get like 2 or 3 minutes that are usable.
It's like watching Wimbledon. Hard to follow where the ball's going.
I was trying to take offence to that, but when I thought about it, I thought it's probably fair assessment from Miguel.
The bits where the result of the match is also important in terms of the plot, you have to choreograph those bits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny because like some of the teams were better than the actual team that's supposed to win the tournament. And I was like, there was sometimes they were losing. It's like, no, you guys are supposed to win the tournament. Like, we have to figure it out. Exactly.
Was that bit of a competitive edge? Did you get a sense of that as you kind of open? So like, let's play 15 minutes. Was that competitive nature evident? You get a sense that off the players, obviously, they have a kind of sporting background, professional kind of background.
Especially towards the last game.
Looking for that. I suppose you would have depended on that, were you?
Absolutely. Especially towards the last game, I feel like the main team on the grand final, like we were just so fired out because we've been filming for like, I don't know, a month at that point. So like the other team was just kind of just fresh and new, just came like very nonchalant to the play, and this guys just like trampled them the first half because they were just so riled up from the experience of like everything leading up to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just one other question I just had on filming it on an iPhone. Like, do you think that this is a trend? Like, I mean, it's obviously not the first time this has happened. I mean, it's happened in a lot of productions recently, but did you find any limitations with it, or do you think to yourself, right, I'm excited for what I can do just with my phone over the next little while?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a lot of advantages. It was a process. The process started with really convincing myself that it made sense, that you could do it, that it wouldn't be like a laughing matter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But once you get
it's not a gimmick.
Yeah, it's not a gimmick, exactly. I mean, there's definitely like budgetary concerns or reasons to do it, and if you're filming like with non-professional actors, it helps to have a smaller camera, because if you put a big camera in front of them, they can get intimidated. We filmed like in a very open, not very controlled locations, so when you have, I mean, everybody thought we were doing like a student film, so we have like hundreds of extras for free, and nobody's looking at the camera. So, and those things like really elevated the production value, and like just the movement, an agile crew, all that stuff helped.
Do you need to put lenses on it? Do you have to buy special lenses to make it look?
You can, like, we wanted to film initially with an anamorphic lens, but it was, at that point, the iPhone was so new, there wasn't even like the gadgets to carry the lens.
Right.
But you can film anamorphic. We put like some ND filters on it, which just to lower the light. And we filmed in a different application. I like the native app of the phone. It's called Filmic Pro. And you can film in logarithmic, which kind of desaturates the image, and that amplifies the dynamic range and gives you a little bit more control about the shutter speed and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The marriage of form and narrative and the functionality as a director, how do you kind of navigate this to make sure that at the same time, at the center of everything, while all this technology is cool and everything, you're still telling the story of a family and their recovery from a traumatic incident?
Well, yeah, exactly. I feel like that's the key. Eventually, you just read really a really good story, which I feel like we had. Like, I was more comfortable in my skills as a screenwriter than as a director. I've just been doing it longer because it's easier to practice. And you realize just like the camera is just a tool. I mean, obviously it's a very important tool because it's the visual language and it's the grammar and everything. But like, I mean, these cameras are filmed like 4K, like 30 frames per second. Like you can film in slow motion at 60 frames per second. It's like these cameras shoot better than like a professional camera from the 90s. You know what I mean? So it's like the visual aspect is sufficient enough. I mean, sometimes you run into problems when there's like night scenes, for example, because it has such a small sensor, it doesn't let a lot of light in.
Right.
So you always have to kind of over-illuminate just to have like a normal look, and that was like a process that we learned a little bit late. But overall, you just realize that just story is story, and it needs to have a plot. You need to be care about the characters, and the camera is just another tool.
Can you explain to us how Adam McKay influenced the film?
Well, Adam McKay's idea, it was his idea to shoot on iPhone. I was like, Adam's was kind of like my, he's kind of been my mentor since I met him when I moved to LA early on, and he was always just a champion and very encouraging. You know, when you're starting out in this kind of thing, and you're writing for no one, basically, just writing because you have these dreams, but nobody really wants to read your material. You're not even good enough to be even considered. So it's just these little like. Adam always kept pushing me like, oh, you got it, like just keep going, and it's just those little comments throughout the years that keep you in this thing, because I mean, being the life as an artist is not easy when you're starting out, really.
Yeah, like because from his perspective, it's really interesting that he has written some incredible stuff, but he's also directed that incredible stuff and has managed to bring it to life in a very unique way that I don't think would be possible if somebody else just took a script and directed it. So yeah. I presume that's kind of what you're thinking about when you write this thing. You're like, this is my baby. I know exactly how they should look. Absolutely.
I don't think I could ever direct something that I didn't write or at least co-write. I don't even exactly know how that process would work. It sounds so difficult because when you're writing it and then you go transition to directing, you kind of know the story inside out. You know everybody's motivation. It just makes it so much more intuitive and easier. I feel like just just some of the great directors, like a Fincher, for example, a David Fincher, who just is a director and will get somebody's script. I feel like it's so much more work, and it's even more admirable in a way, because I feel like it'd be more difficult.
So in 3 years' time, when Marvel come calling, you're like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Well, like maybe they'll let me co-write it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll end up being like the best superhero movie of all time.
Yeah, no, that if you mention it, it's like I'm gonna put an asterisk.
Yeah, your agent is like, what? Shh, Miguel.
What do you mean by Adam McKay being a mentor to you? How has that been, or what sort of work is it?
Yeah, he's just always. I feel like it's just basically just encouragement.
How did you meet him?
It was like through a mutual friend. I had just moved to LA from New York, and I ended up like somehow at this like, I think like his house party or something,
right.
and I met I just met him, and we kind of hit it off, and he just kind of took me a little bit under his wing. He was doing the distribution or the release of The Big Short at the time. And I saw the movie, and I was just kind of flabbergasted by how good it was. I mean, it really is. I think it's a masterpiece. And now that he's done Don't Look Up, I feel like he's just blown up so big, and it's kind of exciting to now have my tiny little film, which he suggested I should just shoot a knife because I had no money, now be in Dublin at the same time that he just received an award. So I had dinner with him yesterday, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened.
It doesn't take much sometimes, doesn't it? You probably asked the question thinking, oh, did he get really down technical and give you a huge direction in terms of what you need to be doing? Miguel, you need to be doing this, that, the other. Sometimes it doesn't take that. It's just what Miguel says, just a little bit of encouragement, just to, simple, just keep going. You've got some good stuff here. You're talented. Keep pushing. That's all it takes sometimes. Exactly. That's all you need.
Exactly. That's all. Being an artist, when you're starting out being an artist, such an abstract idea, especially like film directing is just such a like abstract first world kind of ambition, and you start I got into it through writing or screenwriting, so it's just kind of very confusing to exactly know how you're going to get into the industry or where you should start, or whether you're good enough or not. It's just so personal, and includes so much rejection that, again, as Kenny says, just like these little just tidbits of encouragement and motivation really can carry you for years. Yeah,
and there's a clear parallel between sports careers. We were talking about that earlier on. If somebody encouraged you to shoot a bit more,
artists,
the artists of the ball. Yeah.
Never quite bought into that. I've got to be honest with you. Footballers being in that field of art.
Well, I think
there's maybe exceptions.
Maybe if somebody tapped you on the shoulder and said you can do this. Well, I mean, obviously, yeah.
No, but I feel like maybe the trajectory is a little bit the same, where you just like, it's also kind of like an ephemeral goal, like it's kind of elusive. Everybody wants it. It's kind of winning the lottery. You kind of make it.
I've always been a bit uncomfortable with the tag of great artist. It's never sat comfortably on my shoulders, Miguel. You know what I mean?
Untapped potential, I think, Kenny, is the theme of today's show. The movie screens tonight at the Lighthouse Cinema at 6 p.m. It's called Vapor Diego, and we're going to tweet a link to where you can buy tickets for it. We wish you the very best of luck with it. Do you know what's next, is there an immediate plan for where the movie screens next?
Well, now this agency kind of acquires the film, so like they do the distribution now, and so I just kind of do recommendations, and I think we'll see exactly where they position it next. There's definitely going to be like a
release in Mexico.
No, the agency is in Spain.
Right. And will there eventually be a release in Mexico?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And hopefully, it'll go to like a major streaming platform or something like that. But that's just now, it's such a complicated process. The process of selling a movie, it's just it's much better than somebody else. Yeah, does that.
Definitely. That will kill the sense of art.
It's already a little bit just the post-production process of this film was brutal. Yeah,
I'd say so. Yeah, but I mean, you've come through it the other side, and you've got something to be really proud of. So we wish you the very best of luck with it. Thanks,
Could I just ask the after show party? Was there any information for coming
for you?
This evening?
For you,
I can't make the I'm working, but afterward, post.
You have to go to the screening to go to the after party. It's kind of the condition. So we're hoping to see you there.
Miguel, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
A reminder, OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors.